Going into more problematic things, because listen, that is just the world that we live in right now. We are going to get into a particular publisher who is publishing works by two particular authors, both of which happen to be super problematic right now. So the first one I'm going to get into is author Sophie Lark. Now, this book cover that I have up on screen is for the Sparrow and Vine. It was supposed to be the first book in a series. The information that was available online before it was removed is that Sparrow and Vine series, this is the first in a brand new arranged marriage series about a woman who has to marry a man from a rival family in order for them to secure their portion of an inheritance. Now, full disclosure, you cannot find this book on Amazon anymore. You cannot find it on any, Goodreads, NetGalley, anywhere, anything. This was pulled before the author and the publisher and everybody involved pulled everything down about this book. Now, you might be wondering, well, hey, what is wrong with said book? Well, let's get into it. So we're going to credit the well-read nurse on Threads. This is from Threads, right? Yes. Who did a little highlight from a section in the book. And I quote, it says, highlight yellow, location 839. And I quote, but shouldn't there be a crew of people with questionable work visas picking these grapes for us? Okay, that is one line of a larger, more problematic thing. Clearly, this author is alluding to immigrants who are not here legally. They should be the people picking our things. I mean, we live in a very fraught time where, things like this is extra super sensitive. So clearly there would be a lot of backlash surrounding that. The author then goes on to put out a statement. I'm going to read the statement for you all, especially if you are listening or you just can't read the text on screen. So author Sophie Lark in a statement from Instagram says, I want to start by saying how much I appreciate this community. Your passion, support, and willingness to engage in meaningful conversations have always meant the world to me. That's why it's so important for me to address something I got wrong. It has been brought to my attention that certain lines in Sparrow and Vine were hurtful. Reading your messages and hearing your perspective over the past 24 hours has been humbling, and I want to acknowledge the pain my words have caused. I'm truly sorry. My intention was to craft and demonstrate a flawed main character, but instead I wrote dialogue that read as attacking to a community I care about very much. During the editing process, Bloom, and now I'm going off course, Bloom is the publisher, if you're not familiar, guys. Bloom recommended removing these lines, and I made the wrong choice in keeping them. I now understand that impact matters more than intent, and I regret that my words caused harm. Please don't blame Bloom for my mistakes. I wrote this back in the summer of 2024, and a lot has changed in the world since then, particularly in regards to the fate of immigrants worldwide and certain public figures. Some things I would write differently now, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Words mean nothing without action, so I'm pausing this book and this series for some rewrites to ensure that my work doesn't contribute to harm. I will also be listening more closely to our sensitivity readers and taking additional steps to educate myself on responsible storytelling. And to those who took the time to share their feedback, thank you. To those I have hurt, I am very sorry. I hope I can earn your trust again in the future. I know that was a lengthy statement, but that was from the author Sophie Lark. It can be found on Instagram. That was just basically screenshots. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this statement? I'm just going to say real quick because I want to hear what you all have to say. The fact that she said the world changed from 2024 when she originally wrote it, now we're in, I just finished 2 months in 2025. No. Like, not much has changed, sis. No. Go off.
No, just people came out of the woodwork and just said the quiet thing out loud. So yes, it was the issue was always there. The statement was always hurting the people that you're actually serving. It's not just, doesn't matter your immigrant status. It's just like we're in a place where there's high sensitivity, and this rhetoric was going on last year in the campaign trail. So this is not brand new. The fact that she's trying to spare Bloom from all hurt, it's still Bloom still put the arc on NetGalley for readers to read it. So they they still have responsibility. If they chose not to, Bloom could choose like this is not ready to go, and basically says we're not posting this until some serious re-editing will take place. So yeah, no. I think both parties are to blame. I think it's not just one or the other. I think both are incredibly problematic. And I think it's platforming someone who has established a brand of morally gray. And so this is a way to be morally gray. It's a cop out.
What are your thoughts, Fran?
Yeah. Well, besides the things that we just talked about, which I mean, facts, but also the fact that she wrote that she was trying to write this flawed main character. And there are certain things that a character cannot come back from. So, like, that cannot be a cop out for, you know, how she wants to write her story. The summer of 2024 thing is just wild to me that you would even write that. And the other thing about trying to spare Bloom is the fact that you're actually telling us that you rolled over them and like they just said, yeah, whatever, we'll just do anything you want. Like that's not making them look good either, because that means that they're just going to put out anything just because a big name author tells them this is how I want it. So like that doesn't make them look good either in the sense of how she was trying to like save them. So I don't know. And also I should point out that Bloom has not made a public statement. They just shared Sophie's statement, but they haven't actually made a statement themselves, which I think is also very bad.
Yeah.
I can agree with y'all more. I mean, I think it's very bad. My brain is mentally stuck at you were writing this in 2024. Yeah. If you told me you wrote this in 2019, even then I'd still be looking at you sideways. But I could be like, grace, because a lot of people learned a lot of things during the panorama. However, all right, I think I love a balanced conversation. So I'm going to take a opposite view for a quick second. Listen, people, I don't agree with any of this. But for purposes of balance, because I do believe in balance. Yes. I don't like echo chambers. I really don't. All right, for the purposes of balance, how should an author, and this is in all seriousness, how should an author approach what she was saying she was trying to do? She was trying to create a flawed character, because here's the thing. I'm in here in my lovely little office space, aka library, aka guest overflow room in one of the at some point when my house is full. When I step out the door, you know, I step outside to the real world. And in the real world, you do have problematic people. You have people with good intentions who might say the wrong thing. You have people who are just downright problematic and you're like, stay far away. With that in mind, how do we approach that in literature? Because again, we can't have books where everyone is doing the right thing and saying the right thing all the time. You know, because I don't subscribe to that.
Agreed.
How can we write flawed characters? Maybe someone who is racist, maybe someone who is, what is that word for people who doesn't like gay people? You know what I mean? Doesn't like anyone really from a different faith. Like, how can we approach this in a responsible way? Because I also think it's irresponsible to not include, depending on the book you're writing, obviously, but problematic people in real life are a real thing. So I think authors should be able to write that in literature. How do
Absolutely. I actually believe that too. I don't think that everything should be perfect. I think there should be some problematic things in what we're reading anyway, because like we got to learn from something. If we're just seeing everything perfect, there's nothing to learn from. So I would say a couple of things. First of all, the genre matters. So when we're talking about romance, and even in romance, what is the role of that character? I think that matters. So there are certain things, and I mean, I do read some questionable, morally gray heroes that may kill people. Fine. But
unalivers, I'm like all about the unaliver, the Luigi Mangione kind of trope. I mean, those are my jam. That's my moral.
And I think there's also something to be said for the fact that everybody has different lines that cannot be crossed. So that also goes back to a very personal thing from the reader's perspective. For me, there are certain things that you cannot justify. and make that like the main character. If you want to put that in the story and put that as a side character, that's fine. And there might be some other kind of subjects where you have to make that character realize or learn from what they've done, maybe at the beginning of the book or throughout some point, and then there's got to be somebody's got to call that out, and there's got to be a learning experience from it, at least if you want to maintain them as the lead. But again, what that is, like, is it killing somebody? Is it racism? Like, to me, that's probably a very gray area, because everybody will have different lines. Like, where is your particular line? Like, what's the thing where you're like, well, I can't engage with that? And yeah, I mean, I think that there's got to be, it also depends on marketing. It depends on so many things. Like, you cannot go out here putting this hero there, which, I mean, people did mention the fact that nobody called this, like, it's not something that the hero's learning from. It's just, this is just how he is. And it maintains throughout the whole book. I can't say for sure because I haven't read the book. I did not, I don't really read Sophie Lark, but I think if you're going to make it the hero of a romance story, there's got to be some redemption to some tougher subjects. Because even the killers, there's always a little redemption moment,
Yes.
or like something that makes them more like human, you know?
Right.
I think there should be a purpose behind, like, everything should have a purpose of like why you're saying this way, and like whether, and there's a counteract, like there's like a little antidote to it. It's not just for the sake of doing this. It's like, it's just going to show you morally flawed. Okay, but how are you going to learn from it? You know, what's the character arc? How are you going to grow from this issue? It's just the problem with romance, and this is something we have to be mindful. RWA for a long time was a really racist organization, which is the governing board for Romance Writers of America. And for multiple years, as recent as 2020, 2019, books about white supremacy won awards. And so this is just another, like, it's just another place where it's like, okay, we have to do better. What we know now, is there a purpose to have this kind of rhetoric in our romance reader? Like, is this something that's gonna, like, with no conflict or with no one actually calling out of it? Or can we actually, we're in 2025, we have an opportunity to have more critical voices to explain why this is not acceptable anymore. But then again, we're in 2025 where people are coming out of the woodwork and coming out being overtly racist.
Listen, I always will forever say this. I'd rather know who you are than guessing who you are. You know what I'm saying? So, hello. But anyways, if you're just joining us, welcome. Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. We are talking about Sophie Lark, an author who had the book Sparrow and Vine set to be released. It's now been pulled from everywhere. So the listing for it on sale on Amazon is no longer there. It's not on any NetGalley, Goodreads, just any platform where readers are reading early advanced copies. It has been pulled. Sophie also put out a statement apologizing to readers, specifically about some of her very problematic lines, like this one, which I have a screen grab from the Well-Read Nurse on Threads. So thank you, the Well-Read Nurse, for flagging that and, you know, having the receipts, because again, like I said, there's no trace of the book available online. I do want to note that the author did say it's being pulled. They're going to be, she's going to rewrite certain parts, and then I'm sure the book will see the light of day at that point. The author is also saying the publisher told her these things were problematic, but she chose to go along with it. So those are just high level, some of the points. But if you're just joining us in the chat, just go back, hit rewind and catch up. Replay crew, we'd love to hear from you as well. So if you're watching the replay of this after the live, share your thoughts in the comments.